Good evening, dear listeners, and a very warm welcome to you all. Wherever you are tuning in from tonight, maybe cozied up in bed, listening from your favourite quiet corner at home, or perhaps relaxing somewhere peaceful, with the world fading away outside. I'm so glad you've joined me here. Take a slow, deep breath. Let your shoulders drop. Maybe pull the covers up a bit higher, and feel the day gently slip away. Let the story begin. Wilton Crescent in Belgravia was the perfect stage for tragedy. Elegant Art Deco townhouses curved gracefully beneath the soft glow of street lamps, their facades polished to a mirror sheen. Every guest at number 12 had arrived dressed for the part. Silk gowns rustling, kid gloves smoothing, voices pitched just so. Then Sir Arthur Hargrove, master of the house and financier of renown, who was found dead in his private study, slumped across the mahogany desk with a crystal brandy glass still clutched in one cold hand. The police saw nothing but a heart attack claiming a man of 60 whose health had long been fragile. But Hercule Poirot saw a performance. Someone in this theatre of wealth was playing a role. The role of innocent, the role of murderer. The curtain rises. Chapter 1. The stage is set. Wilton Crescent in Belgravia was the perfect stage for tragedy. Elegant Art Deco townhouses curved gracefully beneath the soft glow of street lamps, their facades polished to a mirror sheen. Every guest at number 12 had arrived dressed for the part. Silk gowns rustling, kid gloves smoothing, voices pitched just so. Then Sir Arthur Hargrove, master of the house and financier of renown, was found dead in his private study, slumped across the mahogany desk with a crystal brandy glass still clutched in one cold hand. The police saw nothing but a heart attack claiming a man of 60 whose health had long been fragile. But Hercule Poirot saw a performance. Someone in this theatre of wealth was playing a role. The role of innocent, the role of murderer. The curtain rises. The grand drawing room of number 12. Wilton Crescent shimmered under the crystal chandelier. Its light danced across velvet curtains the colour of old port, and caught the faint sparkle of hothouse lilies arranged in tall silver vases. The air carried the mingled scents of expensive Chanel perfume, lingering Cuban cigar smoke, strong continental coffee, and fresh furniture wax. Footsteps echoed softly on the polished parquet floor as the household gathered, and each face arranged in suitable expressions of shock. Hercule Poirot stepped from the black taxi into the chill night air of Belgravia. He drew himself up to his full modest height, smoothed an imaginary wrinkle from his sleeve, and surveyed the townhouse as a director surveys his stage. The heavy front door swung open on well-oiled hinges with a soft, decisive click. Inside, the warmth of the drawing room met him like an embrace, carrying the crackle of a fresh fire and the faint pop of a champagne cork from some earlier, happier moment now frozen in memory. Inspector Japp had summoned him with a terse telephone call. "Looks natural, Poirot, but something feels off. The family's acting strange." Poirot's green eyes gleamed with satisfaction. He adjusted his moustache with precision and entered the room where the cast awaited their cues. Lady Eleanor Hargrove sat upon the silk-upholstered settee, dabbing at dry eyes with a crisp linen handkerchief. Her black evening gown clung elegantly to her figure, the fabric whispering softly as she shifted. "My poor Arthur," she murmured, her voice trembling just enough to seem convincing. He retired to the study after dinner, as always. The brandy was his one small indulgence. Watch this performance carefully. Is it truth or theatre? Poirot observed the widow's shoulders shaking with appropriate rhythm. yet the handkerchief remained strangely dry. Captain Felix Hargrove, the nephew, paced near the marble fireplace. His military bearing was impeccable, the rough tweed of his jacket still carrying the faint scent of leather and sandalwood cologne. "I checked on Uncle myself," he said, voice steady and controlled. "Oh, found him like that. Terrible shock. You watch with Poirot, non? Notice how this actor's hands remain perfectly calm. A man in true shock does not hold his hands so still." Miss Clara Beaumont, the secretary, stood by the grand piano, her fingers tracing the cool, polished mahogany lid. Her simple dark dress rustled like distant silk. "I prepared the evening's drinks as usual," she offered quietly. Sir Arthur seemed his normal self, perhaps a little tired after the long day. "Ah, but you say, Poirot reads too much into small gestures. Bear with me. Observe how her eyes flicker away when she mentions the drinks." Mr. Edmund Thorpe, the business partner, occupied a deep leather armchair. Cigar ash forgotten in the silver tray beside him. The smell of fine wine still clung to his breath. "We had discussed the new investment only hours earlier," he said. "Arthur seemed perfectly robust. I cannot believe this has happened." Consider the psychology. What role does this man need to play? The concerned colleague, or the man with much to gain? Dr. Henry Maitland, the family physician, lingered near the doorway, twisting his kid gloves in his hands. "I examined him immediately upon arrival," he stated calmly. "Heart failure, I fear. The digitalis he took for his condition may have failed him at the worst moment." The grandfather clock in the hall chimed once, a low, resonant note that seemed to echo through the cold terrace beyond the French windows. Rain tapped gently at the window panes, adding its own soft percussion to the unfolding drama. The temperature in the drawing-room felt warm and comforting against the chill night air outside, yet a different kind of cold seemed to hover among the assembled guests. Poirot made an expressive gesture with his small hands. "Mesdames et messieurs, the tragedy has occurred upon this elegant stage. Hercule Poirot has arrived to direct the investigation. We shall examine each performance in turn. Order and method will guide us." Lady Eleanor rose gracefully, the silk of her gown rustling. "Whatever you require, Monsieur Poirot." Arthur would have wanted the truth discovered. Her eyes, however, did not quite meet his when she spoke the word truth. "Observe this performance, mon ami. The widow plays devotion beautifully, but watch the eyes. Where is the moisture of genuine grief?" And Poirot tilted his egg-shaped head slightly and arranged a small silver ashtray and a crystal decanter symmetrically upon a side table. The scent of strong coffee drifted from the tray a maid had brought in, its rich aroma cutting through the heavier perfume and cigar smoke. The study itself remained sealed for now, its heavy door closed softly like a curtain drawn on the final scene of a play. Inside lay the body of Sir Arthur Hargrove, the brandy glass still clutched in his cold fingers, papers scattered across the gleaming mahogany desk. Captain Felix stopped pacing for a moment. "I'll show you the way when you're ready, sir." His voice carried the crisp confidence of one accustomed to command, yet something in its tone felt just a fraction too rehearsed. The tension in the room rose like the temperature before a gathering storm. Someone would forget their lines soon enough. The fire crackled warmly in the marble hearth, sending occasional sparks upward, while the crystal chandelier continued its delicate tinkling overhead. Poirot's green eyes swept across the assembled cast once more. Every actor knew their mark. Every face wore its chosen expression. Yet already small cues had been missed. The dry handkerchief, the steady hands, the too smooth explanations flowing like well-rehearsed dialogue. "The stage is set," Poirot said quietly, his voice carrying easily in the hushed room. "The players have taken their places. Let us begin." The stage was set. The players assembled. Let the drama begin. Chapter 2. Enter the players. The morning light filtered through the tall sash windows of the morning room, casting long shadows across the polished mahogany table. A fresh coffee steamed in silver pots, its rich continental aroma mingling with the faint scent of furniture wax and newly delivered hothouse roses. The cast had reassembled as Poirot requested, each in their appointed chair. Costumes changed to today wear, tweed for the men, simple silk for the women. The air felt warm from the nearby fire, yet a subtle chill lingered from the cold terrace visible beyond the French windows. Poirot stood at the head of the table like a director before his rehearsal. He touched his magnificent moustache thoughtfully. "We shall conduct these interviews as scenes upon the stage. Each of you will speak your part. Poirot, he will listen. Observe carefully, mon ami. The mask slips. Did you catch it?" Lady Eleanor Hargrove entered first, her black morning dress crisp and elegant. She smoothed her gloves and sat with practised grace, the silk rustling softly. "I was with my husband all evening until he retired to the study. We had no quarrel. None at all. The grandfather clock chimed 10 as he closed the door. Watch this performance carefully. Is it truth or theatre?" Her hands twisted the handkerchief once, then stilled too quickly, as if remembering the proper cue. Poirot nodded, his green eyes gleaming. "Continue, madame. The brandy he drank alone. Did you prepare the tray yourself?" She shook her head, voice steady. "Clara always did that. I remained here with the others. The piano played softly in the distance. Felix sang a little. It was civilized. Arthur seemed tired but content. Ask yourself, why did she avoid mentioning the exact moment the study door closed? The careful observer, and you are becoming careful, mon ami, will notice how her eyes drift toward the window when the brandy is mentioned." Miss Clara Beaumont followed, her footsteps light on the parquet floor. The texture of her wool cardigan felt rough against the room's luxury. She carried the faint scent of sandalwood from the study. Sir Arthur dictated letters until 8. Then he asked for his usual brandy. I poured it myself from the decanter in the sideboard. He liked it warmed slightly over the spirit lamp. I left him writing at the desk. Too perfect, too rehearsed. Truth stumbles, lies flow smooth. Poirot made an expressive gesture with his small hands. "And you noticed nothing unusual in his manner, mademoiselle?" Clara's eyes flickered toward the French windows, where rain still tapped gently. He seemed preoccupied. He mentioned a new will he intended to sign tomorrow. Something about correcting past mistakes. I thought nothing of it at the time. If you were hiding guilt, how would you perform innocence? Notice how her voice catches ever so slightly on the word mistakes, like an actor afraid of forgetting the next line. Captain Felix Hargrove entered with military stride. The scent of his sandalwood cologne cut sharply through the coffee aroma. His rough tweed jacket brushed against the chair as he sat. I last saw Uncle at 10. He waved me good night from the study door. I went to my room and read until I heard the maid scream around midnight. The house was quiet after that. Consider the psychology. What role does this man need to play? The loyal nephew or the impatient heir? Poirot tilted his egg-shaped head. You checked on him yourself later. Captain! Why?" Felix's jaw tightened, but his hands remained steady on the table. He had been short of breath earlier in the evening. I worried, that is all. The chill night air on the terrace perhaps affected him. The tension rises. Someone will break character soon. The fire crackled warmly, sending the smell of wood smoke curling into the room, while the crystal chandelier tinkled faintly overhead with each passing draught. Mr. Edmund Thorpe came next, leather notebook in hand, the faint taste of bitter medicine still on his breath from a morning tonic. Arthur and I spoke of business after dinner. He was firm about certain investments. I left him at 9:30. My hotel is only round the corner in Knightsbridge. I walked back through the rain. The porter will confirm my arrival. Ah, but you say Poirot reads too much into small gestures. Bear with me. Observe how Thorpe's fingers drum the polished mahogany in perfect rhythm, too controlled for a man truly grieving. Dr. Henry Maitland arrived last, medical bag at his side, kid gloves folded neatly. The leather of the bag felt cold to the touch. I had examined Arthur only last week. His heart was weak but stable. The digitalis dosage was precise. I can only conclude an unfortunate episode. The body showed classic signs, cyanosis, relaxed features. Poirot drew himself up to his full modest height. Each scene has been played, yet contradictions appear like missed cues in a script. The brandy decanter, for instance, contained only Sir Arthur's fingerprints, yet the glass was wiped clean on the inside. Curious, no? Lady Eleanor's breath caught audibly, and the silk of her dress rustling as she shifted. Miss Clara glanced at Felix, then away too swiftly. Captain Felix's military poise seemed suddenly strained, his cologne no longer masking the faint sweat of discomfort. The grandfather clock in the hall chimed the quarter hour, its resonant note cutting through the warm drawing-room, like a reminder that time was moving forward on this theatrical stage. Outside, rain continued its steady percussion on the windows, while inside the temperature felt increasingly close, the fire's warmth battling the underlying chill of suspicion. Poirot arranged the silver coffee pots and crystal sugar bowl symmetrically upon the table with small, precise movements. Order and method, always. The brandy was poisoned with digitalis, mesdames et messieurs. An overdose that mimicked heart failure perfectly. Someone in this room knew exactly how much to add and how to ensure the glass told no tales. You watch with Poirot, no? See how the performances shift when the word poison lands. The mask slips. Did you catch it? Miss Clara's face paled. Captain Felix looked toward the cold terrace as if wishing to escape. Lady Eleanor dabbed at her eyes again, but the linen remained dry. Mr. Thorpe cleared his throat too loudly. Dr. Maitland alone kept his hands still, yet his eyes betrayed calculation. The players had spoken their lines. Alibis had been offered like well-polished scripts, yet the psychology beneath each performance revealed tiny fractures, steady hands where trembling should reign, smooth words where grief should stumble. Every actor had taken their mark. But who played truth? Chapter 3. The First Act. By midday, the drawing-room had become a more intimate theatre. Soft afternoon light filtered through the tall sash windows, casting long shadows across the velvet curtains, the colour of old port. The fire crackled warmly against the chill seeping from the terrace doors, its wood smoke scent blending with strong continental coffee, and the sweet perfume of hothouse lilies freshly arranged in silver vases. The crystal chandelier tinkled faintly with each passing draught, while the grandfather clock in the hall marked time with steady, resonant chimes. Poirot addressed the group once more, his small hands making an expressive gesture. "A mask has slipped already, mesdames et messieurs. Captain Felix, you claim to have checked on your uncle at 10. Yet the grandfather clock was heard striking 11 by the maid, after you had supposedly retired to your room. Explain this missed cue." Felix's face remained composed, but his fingers tightened on the arm of the leather chair, the rough tweed of his jacket brushing the polished mahogany table. "A minor error in recollection. The shock, you understand. The chill night air on the terrace perhaps clouded my mind. Watch this performance carefully. Is it truth or theatre? The mask slips. Did you catch it?" His hand stayed too steady for genuine surprise. Lady Eleanor rose abruptly, the silk of her black morning gown rustling softly. "Felix would never harm Arthur. He adored his uncle. We were all together in this very room after dinner, listening to the distant piano music. The evening was civilized, nothing more." Poirot smoothed an imaginary wrinkle from his sleeve and tilted his egg-shaped head. "We approach the final act. Have you identified the true performer yet? Madam, your performance of grief is technically flawless. Yet when the body was discovered, you asked the maid whether the brandy glass had been touched. How did you know he had been drinking brandy, unless you had seen the scene yourself?" She faltered for the first time, the crisp linen handkerchief rising and falling without leaving any trace of moisture on her cheeks. The temperature in the room felt suddenly warmer from the fire, contrasting the cold terrace visible beyond the French windows. Miss Clara Beaumont stood near the grand piano, her fingers tracing the cool mahogany lid. The faint scent of sandalwood still clung to her simple wool dress. I prepared the tray as usual. Sir Arthur liked the brandy slightly warmed. I wiped the decanter out of habit. That is all. Too perfect, too rehearsed. Truth stumbles, lies flow smooth. Poirot's green eyes gleamed with satisfaction. And the new, will he mention to you, mademoiselle? The one about correcting past mistakes. You burned certain letters last night, no? Clara glanced at Felix, then away too swiftly. Her footsteps sounded light on the parquet as she shifted uncomfortably. Mr. Edmund Thorpe occupied the deep leather armchair, the smell of fine wine and faint cigar smoke still lingering on his breath. "This questioning is outrageous. I left at 9:30. My hotel porter in Knightsbridge will confirm everything. Arthur seemed robust when we discussed investments. If you are hiding guilt, how would you perform innocence? Notice how his fingers drum the table in perfect rhythm, never missing a beat." Dr. Henry Maitland lingered by the doorway, kid gloves folded neatly in his lap. I examined the body immediately. Classic heart failure signs. The digitalis dosage was precise. I see no reason for this theatre. The tension rises. Someone will break character soon. Rain continued its gentle percussion on the windows, while the fire crackled and sent sparks dancing upward. The rich taste of coffee lingered on the tongue from the silver pots still steaming on the sideboard. Poirot drew himself up to his full modest height. The brandy contained an overdose of digitalis. It mimicked heart failure perfectly. Someone knew the exact amount needed and how to wipe the glass clean inside. The first act has revealed its first crack. Lady Eleanor's breath caught audibly, a silk rustling as she sat down heavily. Captain Felix stared at the cold marble fireplace. Miss Clara's face paled beneath the chandelier's sparkling light. The performances had begun to strain under the spotlight of truth. The first act concluded. Some masks had cracked. Reflection. In this elegant Belgravia drawing-room, the theatre of crime reveals its first truth. Humans wear masks not merely to deceive others, but to survive themselves. Lady Eleanor's grief is performed with such precision that one might almost believe it genuine, yet the dry handkerchief tells another story. Captain Felix's steady hands, when recounting his discovery, speak louder than his words. Why do we cling to these performances? Fear of exposure, perhaps. The terror that our true selves, raw and unscripted, would be rejected by the audience of society. Greed performs as grief. Relief masquerades as sorrow. The mask protects the actor from the harsh spotlight of judgment. We rehearse our roles daily because the stage of life demands polish, not honesty. I am reminded of the affair at Styles Court many years ago, where a young woman performed the role of devoted wife with such conviction that even the household believed her tears. She had rehearsed her lines in the mirror each morning, widening her eyes at the precise moment of shock, allowing her voice to break on cue. The handkerchief would dab at dry eyes just as Lady Eleanor does now. Yet she made one fatal error. When the body of her husband was carried past her, she reached automatically for the cigarette case on the mantelpiece. A woman truly shattered does not light a cigarette with steady hands. The body betrays what the face conceals. She had poisoned him for the insurance money, you see, but the little grey cells understood the performance was too polished. The psychology beneath the mask is everything. In the end, the mask crumbled, and truth took its bow with quiet finality. The steady hand, the rehearsed sob, the perfectly timed glance, all collapsed when the spotlight grew too bright. The universal truth about deception is that it always requires rehearsal. Genuine emotion needs no script. It flows messy and unpredictable, like rain on these windows or the crackle of this fire. Here in Wilton Crescent, we see the same pattern repeating. Captain Felix's steady hands, Miss Clara's too perfect recollection of the brandy tray, Mr. Thorpe's rhythmic drumming. Each is a line too well delivered. Our theatre of crime has one truth. Every actor eventually forgets their lines when the spotlight of truth grows too bright and the temperature of suspicion rises. Listen carefully, mon ami. The next mask will fall soon. Ask yourself which performance feels forced. Which actor glances away when the name of the victim is spoken with real weight? Which hands tremble only when they think no one watches? The drama deepens. Watch closely with Poirot. The curtain has only begun to rise on the true faces beneath the costumes the first mask cracked. More would follow. Chapter 4. Rehearsed Lines. The afternoon light slanted across the study, now open for inspection under Poirot's direction. Polished mahogany desk gleamed beneath the touch of small careful hands as he arranged scattered papers symmetrically, and the faint smell of leather bindings and old cigar smoke lingered heavily, mixing with the rich aroma of strong continental coffee brought in on a silver tray. Outside, rain pattered steadily against the tall windows, a cold curtain separating the house from the world beyond. The fire in the marble hearth crackled warmly, fighting the chill night air that seeped from the terrace doors. Poirot pressured each suspect in turn, his green eyes sharp. Captain Felix, your alibi rests upon the grandfather clock. Yet the clock was wound by the butler at 9 and ran slow by 10 minutes. You were seen in the corridor at 11:15, long after you claimed to have retired. The mask slips. Did you catch it? Felix's performance grew strained. He paced near the cold marble fireplace, rough tweed jacket brushing the velvet curtains. I may have misremembered the hour. The shock, you understand, the chill from the terrace perhaps affected my memory. Watch this performance carefully. Is it truth or theatre? His hands trembled now, no longer steady as they had been in the morning room. Poirot tilted his egg-shaped head and smoothed an imaginary wrinkle from his sleeve. Rehearsed lines begin to falter, mon capitaine. The psychology, it reveals much. You knew the glass contained evidence. Your uncle had threatened to expose your gambling debts and changed the will that very morning. Felix stopped pacing. The scent of his sandalwood cologne could not hide the faint sweat of discomfort. He was going to ruin me, but I did not. Too perfect had become too broken. Truth stumbles when pressure mounts. Poirot made an expressive gesture with his small hands. The digitalis came from Dr. Maitland's supply. You borrowed it under the pretext of a simple headache powder. Convenient, non? The tension rises. Someone will break character soon. Lady Eleanor sat on the silk-upholstered settee, her black gown rustling as she twisted the crisp linen handkerchief. The fire's warmth made the room feel close, while rain continued its soft percussion on the panes. Miss Clara Beaumont stood by the grand piano, fingers tracing the cool mahogany lid. I poured the brandy as usual. I wiped the decanter out of habit. That is all I did. Her voice trembled, the wool of her cardigan suddenly seeming rougher against the elegant surroundings. If you were hiding guilt, how would you perform innocence? Notice how her eyes dart toward Felix once too often, like an actor missing her cue. Poirot drew himself up. Mademoiselle, you burned letters in the fireplace last night. Letters that spoke of affection for Sir Arthur. The new will would have secured your future. Yet you say nothing. Clara's face paled. The distant sound of a door closing softly echoed from the hall, followed by the faint tinkling of the crystal chandelier overhead. Mr. Edmund Thorpe blustered from his leather armchair, cigar ash forgotten in the tray. The bitter taste of medicine still lingered on his breath. This is outrageous. I left early. My hotel porter will confirm. Arthur and I discussed business, nothing more. But you say, Poirot reads too much into small gestures. Bear with me. Observe how Thorpe's fingers now drum unevenly, the rhythm finally broken. Dr. Henry Maitland lingered near the study door, kid gloves twisting in his lap. I supplied the digitalis weeks ago for Arthur's condition. I believed Felix's story about headaches. There was no reason to suspect. The script was failing. Performances that had once flowed smoothly now cracked under the spotlight. The rich smell of coffee mixed with wood smoke and faint Chanel perfume worn by Lady Eleanor. The temperature felt warmer near the fire, yet a deeper chill of suspicion filled the room. Poirot arranged the crystal brandy decanter and silver ashtray symmetrically once more. Order and method, always. Someone added the overdose after Clara prepared the tray. Someone wiped the glass inside to remove traces. Someone knew exactly how digitalis would mimic heart failure. The rehearsed lines they no longer convince. You watch with Poirot, non? See how each actor shifts uncomfortably. The widow's dry eyes, and the nephew's trembling hands, the secretary's furtive glances, all tell their own story now. Lady Eleanor spoke, voice strained. Arthur trusted everyone, even those who did not deserve it. Her silk gown whispered as she moved, but the performance of loyalty felt thinner than before. Captain Felix looked toward the cold terrace as if wishing to escape the warmth of the drawing-room and the weight of Poirot's gaze. Miss Clara touched her cardigan nervously. Mr. Thorpe cleared his throat too loudly. Dr. Maitland's hands finally stilled, yet his eyes showed calculation turning to fear. The study door closed softly behind the last suspect, as Poirot remained alone for a moment. The fire crackled, rain tapped, and the grandfather clock chimed the hour with solemn resonance. The elegant stage had grown heavy with unspoken truths. His rehearsed lines began to falter. The script was failing. Chapter 5. The Mask Slips. Twilight gathered outside the French windows, casting long shadows across the velvet curtains, the colour of old port. The drawing-room fire burned low, its warm glow battling the chill night air, seeping in from the cold terrace. Champagne had been offered but refused. Only strong coffee remained, its bitter taste sharp on the tongue from the silver pots on the sideboard. The crystal chandelier tinkled faintly overhead, while the grandfather clock chimed softly in the hall, marking the approaching final moments of pretense. Poirot confronted Captain Felix alone in the centre of the room. He touched his magnificent moustache thoughtfully, and made an expressive gesture with his small hands. "You discovered the body, mon capitaine. Yet you did not call the doctor immediately. Instead you moved the brandy glass. Why? The mask slips. Did you catch it?" Felix's face drained of colour. His military bearing cracked as he stood near the polished mahogany desk. I panicked. That is all. The shock overwhelmed me." "Watch this performance carefully. Is it truth or theatre?" His hands trembled visibly now, no longer the steady props of earlier scenes. Poirot tilted his egg-shaped head, green eyes gleaming with satisfaction. "The psychology. It is everything. You knew the glass contained evidence of the overdose. Your uncle had threatened to expose your gambling debts and alter the will that very morning. The digitalis came from Dr. Maitland's supply, which you borrowed under the pretext of a headache powder." Felix broke then. His shoulders shook, but the tears were real at last, tears of a man whose role had collapsed under the spotlight. "He was going to ruin me, cut me out completely. I only wanted what was rightfully mine. The performance, it was necessary." The mask had fallen. Beneath it, the true face at last. The rough tweed of his jacket seemed suddenly ill-fitting, the sandalwood cologne unable to mask the sweat of genuine fear. Rain continued its steady percussion on the windows, adding a melancholy rhythm to the moment. Lady Eleanor entered unbidden, silk gown rustling softly against the parquet floor. Her face showed genuine horror as she looked at her nephew. "Felix, no." The grief she had worn like costume fell away completely, revealing simple relief mixed with shock. The crisp linen handkerchief dropped forgotten to the floor. "You watch with Poirot, non? We see how real feeling emerges when the rehearsal ends. Ask yourself, why does relief appear so clearly now that the mask is gone?" Poirot smoothed an imaginary wrinkle from his sleeve. "You knew nothing of the murder itself, madame. Your mask was different, relief performing as sorrow. The marriage had grown cold and empty, a society arrangement. Yet you are innocent of this crime. The performance of mourning was for the audience of Belgravia, not for the man." Miss Clara Beaumont followed, footsteps light but hesitant. The wool of her cardigan felt rough in the warm room. "I loved him quietly," she whispered, voice breaking without rehearsal. "The new will would have given me security, but I never wished him harm. I only burned the letters to protect my reputation." Too Perfect had become raw and honest, and the distant piano music drifted from another part of the house. A melancholy melody that now fitted the unfolding revelation. The fire crackled warmly, sending wood smoke curling upward, while the scent of strong coffee lingered. Mr. Edmund Thorpe and Dr. Henry Maitland entered last, their faces pale under the chandelier's sparkling light. Thorpe's leather notebook hung limp in his hands. "I knew nothing of the poison," he said, voice no longer blustering. "Only that Arthur planned changes that might affect us all." Dr. Maitland twisted his kid gloves. "I supplied the digitalis weeks ago. I believed the story about headaches. My error was trust, not murder." The tension in the elegant drawing room reached its peak. The temperature felt close from the fire, contrasting the chill night air outside. The crystal glasses on the sideboard caught the light, their smooth surfaces cold to the touch. The rich aroma of hothouse lilies mixed with faint cigar smoke from earlier in the day. Poirot drew himself up to his full modest height and arranged a small silver ashtray symmetrically on the table. Order and method. Always. "Captain Felix, your performance of the loyal nephew was convincing for a time. The shock, the helpful discovery, the steady voice, magnifique. But the body betrays what the face tries to hide. Steady hands when they should tremble. The psychology reveals the truth." Felix sank into a chair, face ashen. No more lines to deliver. No more mask to adjust. Genuine despair replaced the rehearsed outrage. Consider the psychology. What role does this man no longer need to play? The heir who waited too impatiently, and the actor who forgot that truth needs no rehearsal. Lady Eleanor sat beside her nephew, no longer dabbing dry eyes. Real emotion flowed freely now. Regret for a loveless marriage, relief at its end, horror at the crime committed under her roof. Miss Clara wept quietly, her secret love finally spoken without shame. The others stood silent, their minor roles concluded as the spotlight narrowed. The rain on the windows softened, as if the stage itself acknowledged the shift. The fire's warmth offered comfort where none had existed before. The chandelier continued its delicate tinkling, like applause that would never come for this performance. Poirot's green eyes swept the room. The mask had fallen. Beneath it, the true face at last. The drama moves toward its curtain call. The mask had fallen. The true face emerged. Chapter 6. Behind the curtain. The library offered a quieter backstage to the unfolding drama. Tall mahogany bookcases lined the walls, their leather spines releasing a faint musty scent beneath the fresh perfume of hothouse lilies arranged in crystal vases. A fire burned steadily in the hearth, its warm glow and crackling wood smoke contrasting the chill night air that drifted from the partially open terrace doors. Soft lamplight cast gentle shadows across the polished parquet floor, while the distant grandfather clock chimed the hour with solemn resonance. Poirot sat in a deep velvet armchair, his small hands arranging a stack of papers symmetrically on the side table. The rich aroma of strong continental coffee lingered from an earlier tray. "The curtain has been drawn back, mes amis. Now we see the backstage of relationships, with the hidden connections that drove this performance." Past secrets emerged like props removed from storage. Captain Felix had embezzled thousands from the family firm over many months. Sir Arthur had discovered the theft and planned to cut him from the inheritance that very morning. The new will would have left Felix with nothing but disgrace. Felix had borrowed the digitalis from Dr. Maitland under the pretext of headaches, then added the fatal overdose to the brandy after Clara prepared the tray. Miss Clara Beaumont had been more than a secretary. She had loved Sir Arthur quietly for years, hoping the new will would finally secure her future and perhaps more. She had burned the affectionate letters in the fireplace to protect her reputation once the body was found. Her performance of quiet efficiency had hidden deep affection and quiet desperation. Mr. Edmund Thorpe had been blackmailed by Sir Arthur over a past financial indiscretion in the city. The threat of exposure had made him nervous, yet his hands remained clean of the actual murder. He had left early, walking through the rain to his hotel in Knightsbridge, his alibi later confirmed by the porter. Dr. Henry Maitland had supplied the digitalis without suspicion, believing Felix's story completely. His role as trusted physician had blinded him to the danger. Lady Eleanor's secret affair with a young artist in Chelsea explained her dry eyes and performed grief. The marriage had long been a cold society arrangement. She had longed for freedom, not fortune, and played the devoted widow only for the audience of Belgravia society. Hidden connections exposed themselves fully under Poirot's spotlight. Felix and Clara had briefly conspired to hide minor irregularities in the household accounts, though Clara knew nothing of the murder. Thorpe and Maitland had discussed business worries with Sir Arthur the week before, never imagining the deadly outcome. The elegant townhouse, once a stage of refined Art Deco luxury, now revealed its true nature as a theatre of resentment, fear, and unspoken desires. Poirot touched his magnificent moustache thoughtfully. Behind every curtain, a secret. The silk gowns, the crisp linen, the polished mahogany, all hid the real motives. Greed performing as loyalty, love performing as indifference, fear performing as confidence. The fire crackled warmly, sending sparks upward, while rain tapped gently on the windows, and the scent of leather bindings mixed with faint sandalwood cologne and expensive Chanel perfume that still lingered on Lady Eleanor's discarded shawl. The temperature in the library felt comforting near the hearth, yet the revelations brought a different kind of chill. Reflection. Behind the curtain of Wilton Crescent lie the true motives of every actor in this drama. Captain Felix performed loyalty, while deep resentment and greed festered beneath. Lady Eleanor wore grief like an elegant costume, yet relief shone through when the mask finally slipped. Miss Clara hid quiet love behind efficient service. Why do humans hide their hearts so carefully behind these performances? Pride, greed, fear of losing the role society has assigned them. We wear masks because the stage of life demands it. Grief for the cameras of society, loyalty for the audience of family and friends, calm for the critics who watch our every move. The mask protects the vulnerable self from exposure, from judgment, from the terror of being truly seen. I recall the case of the Orient Express, where 12 actors played their parts with such conviction that the entire luxury train became a floating theatre of deception. Each passenger had rehearsed their alibi with care, their expressions of shock perfectly timed, their little gestures of innocence polished until they shone. One man even performed sleep so convincingly that his snoring was measured to the second. The women adjusted their silk gowns and dabbed dry eyes with linen handkerchiefs. Yet the error came in the uniformity of their stories. Too neat, too coordinated, like a script read by a single director. A single mismatched button on a uniform, a steady hand where trembling should have ruled, revealed the collective conspiracy. The psychology was clear. When many actors share one script, the performance becomes flawless, yet hollow. Truth, by contrast, is solitary and untidy, full of stumbles and raw emotion. In that confined stage rolling through the night, the little grey cells cut through the costumes and luxury and revealed the shared motive of revenge. Here in Belgravia, we see the same principle on a smaller, more intimate scale. One actor's mask hid a single desperate motive of greed and fear, and the others merely danced around it, performing their own supporting roles with varying degrees of skill. The universal truth about hidden motives is that they fester in the dark until the spotlight of truth forces them into the open. Love performed as indifference, hate disguised as helpfulness, poverty masked by displays of wealth, or the reverse. Each is a costume chosen to protect the wearer from the consequences of honesty. Yet truth does not rehearse. It emerges raw, often ugly, but always honest in the end. The body betrays the actor. A dry handkerchief, steady hands, a glance too swift or too long avoided. These tells cannot be perfectly controlled forever. Listen, mon ami. Look behind the curtains in your own daily life. Which role do you play that no longer fits comfortably? Which mask have you worn so long that it feels like your own face? The drama of Wilton Crescent teaches us that every secret has its price, every motive its mask, and every performance its eventual curtain call. The theatre may hide the truth for a time, but eventually the lights brighten and the real faces are revealed. The wise observer learns to watch not for the polished lines, but for the moments when the actor forgets them. Behind every curtain, a secret, every secret, a motive. Chapter 7. The Final Act. The entire cast assembled once more in the grand drawing-room of number 12 Wilton Crescent. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead, their light dancing across velvet curtains the colour of old port and polished mahogany surfaces. The fire crackled warmly in the marble hearth, sending the scent of wood smoke curling through the room and battling the chill night air that seeped from the terrace doors. Fresh hothouse lilies filled silver vases, their sweet perfume mingling with lingering traces of expensive Chanel. Strong continental coffee and faint cigar smoke. The grandfather clock chimed solemnly in the hall, its resonant notes marking the approach of the curtain call. Poirot stood at the centre like the director commanding his stage. He drew himself up to his full modest height, touched his magnificent moustache thoughtfully, and made an expressive gesture with his small hands. Mesdames et messieurs, you have each performed for Poirot. Some truthfully, some not. The stage is set for the final act. Let us review the performances, shall we? The tension rose palpably. Rain tapped gently against the tall windows, adding its soft percussion to the moment. Silk gowns rustled as Lady Eleanor shifted on the settee. Rough tweed brushed leather chairs. The warm temperature near the fire contrasted the cold terrace visible beyond the French windows. Lady Eleanor, you played the grieving widow with technical perfection. The handkerchief dabbing at the eyes, the shoulders shaking appropriately, the murmured words of loss. But the grief, it was costume, not a feeling. The linen remained dry. No mascara ran. You knew relief, not sorrow, for the marriage had become a cold cage of society expectations. Yet you did not kill. Your mask was one of performed mourning to satisfy Belgravia's audience. Watch this performance carefully. Is it truth or theatre? You see it now, no? The widow's eyes no longer avoid the spotlight. Miss Clara Beaumont, you performed the loyal and efficient secretary. Quiet, helpful, always in the background. But loyalty does not hide letters in the fireplace or burn evidence of affection. You loved Sir Arthur quietly, hoping the new will would bring security and perhaps more. Your role was touching, yet innocent of murder. The performance of discretion hid a gentle heart. The mask slips. Did you catch it? Observe how real emotion flows freely now that the script has ended. Mr. Edmund Thorpe, your role was the saddened business partner, concerned and cooperative. Yet saddened partners do not check their hotel alibi twice before it is even questioned. You had your own worries from past indiscretions, but your hands remained clean of poison. The performance of helpfulness masked only self-preservation. Ah, but you say Poirot reads too much into small gestures. Bear with me. The drumming fingers finally lost their perfect rhythm under pressure. Dr. Henry Maitland, you played the concerned family physician, calm and professional. Oh, but concerned physicians do not leave digitalis accessible without deeper suspicion when a desperate man asks for it. Your trust was exploited, yet your error was professional, not criminal. The role of the trusted doctor hid nothing darker. If you were hiding guilt, how would you perform innocence? Notice how the good doctor's kid gloves twist no longer with confidence. Poirot paused, green eyes gleaming with satisfaction. He arranged a small crystal decanter and silver ashtray symmetrically on the side table with precise movements. Order and method, always. The fire's warmth filled the room, while rain continued its steady rhythm on the panes. The faint taste of bitter coffee still lingered from earlier. And so we come to our leading performer, Captain Felix Hargrove. Felix stiffened in his chair, and the military bearing now broken and strained. His rough tweed jacket seemed suddenly too heavy. The scent of sandalwood cologne could not mask the sweat of exposure. You gave the most convincing performance of all. The shocked nephew, the helpful discoverer of the body, the outraged loyal relative, magnifique, the steady voice, the crisp explanations, the military precision in every gesture. But you made one fatal error, one small moment when the mask slipped completely. Consider the psychology. What role did this man need to play? The patient air, waiting in the wings. Yet greed demanded a faster entrance. When you spoke of checking on your uncle at 10, your hands remained perfectly steady. Too steady for a man who had just poisoned his benefactor with an overdose of digitalis. A truly shocked nephew would have trembled. The body knows the truth even when the face lies with polished skill. You borrowed the digitalis under false pretense. You added the fatal dose after Miss Clara prepared the tray. You wiped the glass inside to remove traces. All because Sir Arthur planned to expose your embezzlement and cut you from the will that very morning. Felix's face turned ashen. His shoulders shook, but this time the emotion was raw and unrehearsed. No more lines, no more mask. The performance is over. The curtain falls. The truth, she takes her bow. The room fell into heavy silence, broken only by the crackle of the fire, the soft tinkling of the chandelier, and the distant chime of the clock. Lady Eleanor looked at her nephew with genuine horror and pity, her own mask of grief long discarded. Miss Clara wept quietly, her secret love finally free of pretense. Mr. Thorpe and Dr. Maitland sat motionless, their supporting roles concluded. Poirot smoothed an imaginary wrinkle from his sleeve and tilted his egg-shaped head. You see it now, mon ami? Every actor eventually forgets their lines when the spotlight of truth grows too bright. Greed performed as loyalty. Fear performed as confidence. The elegant stage of Wilton Crescent hid resentment and desperation beneath silk and polish. But the little grey cells, they see behind the masks. The tension that had built through every scene finally broke. Felix lowered his head, the last traces of his rehearsed outrage gone. Real despair replaced the actor's facade. The elegant drawing room, once filled with polished performances, now held only stripped faces and quiet truth. Outside, The rain softened as if the stage itself acknowledged the end. Inside, and the fire continued its warm crackle, offering a gentle contrast to the cold reality of justice approaching. The crystal glasses on the sideboard caught the chandelier light one final time, smooth and cold. Poirot drew himself up once more. The final act has concluded. Only truth survived the curtain call. The theatre of crime has played its last scene. The final act concluded. Only truth survived the curtain call. Chapter 8. Curtain Call. The morning after the final act arrived, with quiet grey light filtering through the tall sash windows of the drawing-room. The crystal chandelier hung still, its sparkles subdued in the daylight. Fresh coffee steamed in silver pots on the sideboard, its rich continental aroma mixing with the fading scent of hothouse lilies that had begun to wilt slightly in their silver vases. Oh, the fire had been allowed to burn low, sending occasional soft crackles and a gentle wood smoke scent through the now calm space. Outside, the rain had ceased, leaving the cold terrace glistening under a pale sky. Justice arrived with quiet footsteps. 2 plainclothes policemen entered through the heavy front door, their shoes echoing softly on the polished parquet floor. They took statements in measured tones, the leather of their notebooks creaking as they wrote. Captain Felix Hargrove sat motionless in the leather armchair, his rough tweed jacket rumpled, the military bearing finely and completely broken. Handcuffs clicked shut with a cold, decisive sound that seemed to echo through the elegant room. Poirot stood near the marble fireplace, watching the scene with satisfied green eyes. He adjusted his moustache with precision and smoothed an imaginary wrinkle from his sleeve. The curtain call has come, mes amis. No applause for this performance, only justice. Watch this performance carefully, or rather, the absence of it. Felix no longer acts. The mask is gone, and what remains is the raw face of a man who chose greed over blood. Lady Eleanor Hargrove sat straighter on the silk-upholstered settee, her black mourning dress no longer a costume of grief but simple clothing. The crisp linen handkerchief lay forgotten beside her. Real poise had replaced the rehearsed trembling. "I never suspected," she said quietly, voice free of theatrical tremor. "The marriage was cold, but murder. I would never have imagined it from Felix. You watch with Poirot, non? And see how relief and quiet strength emerge when the role of grieving widow is finally dropped." The psychology reveals itself. She performed sorrow for society, but now breathes freely. Miss Clara Beaumont stood near the grand piano, fingers lightly touching the cool, polished mahogany lid, one last time. Her simple wool dress seemed less like a supporting costume and more like honest attire. Tears welled genuinely in her eyes, not for show, but for the love that had been real, and the shock of betrayal. "He seemed so devoted," she whispered. "I burned the letters to protect my name, not to hide crime. Now everything feels exposed." The mask slips. Did you catch it earlier? Now the true face shows gentle sorrow and quiet dignity. No more rehearsed efficiency. Mr. Edmund Thorpe paced slowly near the French windows, and the leather of his shoes soft on the parquet. His business notebook hung loosely in his hand, no longer a prop for confidence. The faint scent of fine wine from the previous evening had been replaced by the clean smell of morning air drifting in. "I worried about my own secrets," he admitted. "Arthur held them over me, but I never wished him dead. This ends the theatre for all of us. If you were hiding guilt, how would you perform innocence? Thorpe no longer needs to perform. His relief is visible in the relaxed shoulders and honest eyes. Dr. Henry Maitland stood by the doorway, kid gloves folded neatly but no longer twisted in anxiety. His medical bag rested on a side chair, the leather cool and still. "My trust was misplaced," he said with professional calm now tinged with regret. "The digitalis was meant to help a weak heart, and not stop one. I see my error clearly now." The tension that had filled the elegant Belgravia townhouse had finally drained away. The temperature in the drawing-room felt balanced, warm enough from the low fire, cool enough from the open terrace doors to allow clear thought. The grandfather clock chimed the hour with steady, unhurried resonance, as if marking the return of ordinary time after the drama. Poirot made an expressive gesture with his small hands. Each actor has been stripped of their role. Captain Felix performed the loyal nephew with skill, but greed demanded a shortcut. The body betrayed him with steady hands when trembling was required. The others performed their supporting parts, grief, loyalty, concern, but none carried the poison. Consider the psychology. What happens when the spotlight of truth shines without mercy? Masks fall, and real faces emerge, often softer or stronger than the costume suggested. Felix was led towards the door. His footsteps sounded heavier on the parquet, no longer the crisp military stride. He paused briefly, looking back at the room that had been his stage. No final speech, no dramatic exit, only quiet acceptance of the curtain's fall. The policeman guided him out with firm but respectful hands, the front door closing softly behind them like the final curtain descending. Lady Eleanor rose and moved to the windows, looking out over the glistening terrace. The chill morning air touched her face, refreshing after the close warmth of suspicion. She turned to Poirot. "Thank you, monsieur. The house feels lighter already. I will sell it and move to Chelsea. No more performances for society's sake." Miss Clara approached Poirot, her footsteps light once more, but now honest. "The lessons will stay with me. Love should not hide behind secrecy, nor should truth." Mr. Thorpe and Dr. Maitland offered brief, awkward nods of farewell. Their minor roles in the drama had concluded without lasting stain. The scent of fresh coffee still lingered, a comforting note in the aftermath. Poirot tilted his egg-shaped head and arranged the silver coffee pots symmetrically on the tray. Order and method, always. The elegant Art Deco room, once heavy with rehearsed lines and hidden motives, now breathed with quiet resolution. The chandelier caught the morning light and sparkled gently, no longer illuminating a crime scene, but a space returning to peace. The theatre of Wilton Crescent had emptied of its players. Justice had taken its bow without fanfare, and no applause echoed through the halls. Only the soft sounds of doors closing, footsteps fading, and the distant hum of Belgravia resuming its daily rhythm. No applause for this performance, only justice. Chapter 9. After the show weeks passed over Wilton Crescent like the slow closing of a theatre season, the grand townhouse at number 12 stood quieter now, its Art Deco elegance softened by the gentle spring light, filtering through the tall sash windows. The crystal chandelier hung still, catching occasional gleams but no longer illuminating tense performances. Fresh flowers had been removed, leaving only the faint lingering scent of hothouse lilies, mixed with polished furniture wax, and the clean smell of aired rooms. The fire in the drawing-room burned low and companionable, its wood smoke blending with the rich aroma of continental coffee served in delicate porcelain. Lady Eleanor Hargrove moved through the rooms with new lightness. Her black mourning dress had been replaced by soft silk in muted tones, rustling gently as she walked across the polished parquet floor. She no longer dabbed at dry eyes with crisp linen. Instead, her face showed genuine peace. "The house feels different," she told Poirot during his final visit. "No more pretending for society's sake. I have sold it and will move to a small villa in Chelsea. There I shall paint and live without masks. Watch this transformation carefully, mon ami. The widow who performed grief has stepped into honest freedom. Relief no longer hides behind sorrow. Miss Clara Beaumont visited the house one last time to collect her things. Her footsteps sounded light and unhurried on the parquet. The rough texture of her wool cardigan had been traded for a simple but elegant day dress. She paused by the grand piano, fingers brushing the cool mahogany lid with quiet affection. "I loved him truly," she said softly, voice free of rehearsal. "The new will would have given me security, but I never wished harm. Now I have accepted a position with a publishing firm. My secret is no longer a burden." The mask had fully dissolved. Genuine strength emerged where quiet efficiency once performed. Ask yourself, how does truth liberate when the performance ends? Mr. Edmund Thorpe called briefly to settle final business matters. His leather notebook no longer served as a prop for confidence. He stood near the French windows, looking out at the terrace where rain no longer fell. The faint scent of fine wine had vanished, replaced by the fresh air of resolution. "Arthur's threats over my past mistakes are gone with him," he admitted. "I return to the city with clearer hands. The partnership dissolves cleanly." Consider the psychology. The man who performed calm concern now walks without the weight of hidden fear. Supporting roles often carry less burden once the leading drama concludes. Dr. Henry Maitland stopped by to offer medical closure. His kid gloves rested calmly in his hands, no longer twisted in anxiety. The leather of his medical bag felt cool and ordinary. "I have reviewed the case with the authorities," he said. "My error was trust, not intent. The digitalis will be handled more carefully in future. Life continues with lessons learned." The temperature in the drawing room felt perfectly balanced, warm from the low fire, cool from the open terrace doors that let in fresh spring air. The grandfather clock chimed steadily, its resonant notes marking ordinary hours rather than dramatic ones. Outside, Belgravia resumed its elegant rhythm with the soft sounds of distant traffic and footsteps on pavement. Captain Felix Hargrove faced justice in a quiet courtroom. His military bearing had crumbled completely. No rehearsed outrage remained. He spoke little. The steady hands that once betrayed him now folded in acceptance. The jury saw the true face behind the loyal nephew mask. Sentence was passed without theatrical appeals. The performance that began with poison ended in silence. Poirot returned to the house one final afternoon, and he stood in the centre of the drawing room, green eyes sweeping the space that had served as his stage. He arranged a small silver ashtray and crystal decanter symmetrically on the side table with precise movements. The theatre empties, yet the lessons remain. Each actor has been transformed by the fall of the curtain. You watch with Poirot, no? See how the elegant setting itself has changed. From crime scene heavy with suspicion to a peaceful house ready for new stories. The velvet curtains hang quietly. The polished mahogany reflects only sunlight now. Lady Eleanor joined him near the marble fireplace. "Thank you, Monsieur Poirot. I feel lighter. The affair in Chelsea no longer needs hiding. I will marry quietly and live honestly." Her silk gown rustled softly, but the sound carried freedom rather than performance. Miss Clara approached, carrying a small box of personal items. The love I felt was real. Now I carry it without shame. Publishing suits me. Words on paper need no masks. Her eyes held quiet satisfaction, the earlier tears replaced by forward-looking calm. The others had already moved on. Thorpe returned to his financial world with fewer secrets. Maitland continued his practice with greater caution. The house itself seemed to breathe easier. The chill of suspicion lifted, replaced by the warmth of resolution. Poirot tilted his egg-shaped head and touched his magnificent moustache thoughtfully. Transformations, they are the true curtain call, the murderer stripped of his role, the innocent freed from false suspicion, the widow discovering authentic life. Even the setting shifts from elegant stage of tragedy to quiet space of peace. The fire crackled gently, sending a last puff of wood smoke into the air. The scent of strong coffee lingered comfortingly. Outside, birds sang on the terrace, their notes replacing the earlier rain's percussion. The crystal chandelier sparkled in the afternoon light, no longer highlighting missed cues, but simply illuminating a resolved drama. Lady Eleanor walked Poirot to the front door. The heavy door closed softly behind him, with a final, decisive click. The theatre of Wilton Crescent had emptied. Its players had scattered to new roles, some wiser, some freer, all changed by the spotlight of truth. The lessons of masks and performances would linger in their minds and in the careful observer's heart. Society might demand new costumes tomorrow, but for now, honesty had taken its bow. The theatre emptied. The lessons remained. Chapter 10. Poirot reviews the performance. In his comfortable apartment near Regent's Park, Hercule Poirot sat before a small fire in the grate. A tisane steamed gently in a fine porcelain cup, its lemon and herb scent rising pleasantly and mingling with the faint aroma of furniture wax and fresh flowers from a nearby vase. The room glowed with soft lamplight, polished mahogany tables reflecting the warm glow. Outside, London traffic hummed distantly, but here order and method reigned undisturbed. Poirot had arranged the day's post symmetrically upon the side table, and now leaned back in his velvet armchair. Green eyes thoughtful as he reviewed the drama at Wilton Crescent. The performance had been masterful in its way. Each actor had chosen their mask with care. Grief for the widow, loyalty for the nephew, quiet efficiency for the secretary, concern for the partner and doctor. Yet the psychology beneath had betrayed them all. Why do people perform rather than reveal truth? Because society demands the show. A widow must weep convincingly. A nephew must mourn with proper shock. A secretary must serve without personal desire. The masks society forces upon us are heavy, but we wear them willingly, fearing the emptiness that might lie beneath if the curtain were torn away too soon. Guilt always betrays the actor. Captain Felix's steady hands, when recounting his discovery, told the tale long before evidence appeared. Lady Eleanor's dry handkerchief revealed relief performing as sorrow. Miss Clara's too perfect memory of the brandy tray hid genuine affection, and these tells cannot be perfectly controlled forever. The body knows the truth even when the face lies with polished skill. Genuine emotion is messy, unpredictable, alive. Performed emotion is smooth, flawless, dead. I am reminded of the terrible affair at End House, where a clever young woman played the role of intended victim so convincingly that even I, Hercule Poirot, was deceived for a time. She had rehearsed her fainting fits in front of every mirror, widened her eyes at the precise moment of shock, and allowed her voice to break on cue. The handkerchief would dab at dry eyes with perfect rhythm, much like Lady Eleanor in Wilton Crescent. She wore silk gowns that rustled dramatically and performed terror with such elegance that the entire household believed her. Yet she made one fatal error. She smiled too quickly when she thought no one watched. The careful observer sees what the actor forgets in private moments. In that case, as here, the mask served the same purpose: to hide the hunger for money, for freedom, for survival. The revelation came when the spotlight of truth forced the final bow, and the polished performance crumbled into raw confession. The psychology was exquisite. By appearing the target, she directed all suspicion away from herself as the murderer. Steady hands and rehearsed sobs collapsed when the little grey cells cut through the costumes. The psychology of revelation is simple yet profound. When the curtain falls, the actor stands naked. Some, like Lady Eleanor, discover freedom in honesty and move to Chelsea to paint and love openly. Others, like Felix, find only chains of consequence. Truth triumphs because performance requires constant energy. Lies exhaust the performer. Honesty restores the soul. The human heart longs ultimately to remove the mask and breathe without rehearsal. In the end, the theatre of Wilton Crescent taught deeper lessons. Society may applaud the polished performance, but the soul craves authenticity. We wear masks because we fear judgment, yet judgment comes anyway when the lines falter. The wise person learns to perform less and live more. Greed performed as loyalty, fear as confidence, love as indifference, each costume chosen to protect the wearer. Yet every actor eventually forgets their lines when the spotlight grows too bright. The body betrays what the face tries to hide: a dry eye, a steady hand, a glance too swift or too long avoided. Poirot sipped his tisane, the warm liquid comforting against the cool evening air, drifting through a slightly open window. News of the character's fates had reached him. Lady Eleanor had married her artist quietly, and now lived with colour and laughter instead of scripted sorrow. Miss Clara thrived in publishing. Her secret love transformed into quiet strength. She no longer burned letters, but wrote her own story. Mr. Thorpe conducted business with cleaner hands and fewer secrets. Dr. Maitland practiced with greater caution, his trust now measured. Captain Felix faced his sentence, the military mask replaced by plain prison grey. The elegant townhouse in Belgravia had been sold, its stage cleared for new players who might never know the drama that once unfolded there. The transformations had been complete, and the murderer moved from convincing performer to exposed criminal. The innocent suspects stepped from wrongly cast villains into their true roles. The setting itself shifted from elegant crime scene heavy with suspicion to a peaceful house ready for ordinary life. And you, mon ami, the listener, have journeyed from passive viewer to active analyst, now able to spot the slipped mask in your own daily drama. Why do people perform? Pride, fear, greed, the need to belong. The masks society demands, grief at funerals, loyalty in families, calm in crisis, often hide the raw truth beneath. Yet truth ultimately triumphs because it needs no rehearsal. It flows messy and honest, while lies require constant maintenance until the actor tires and the mask cracks. Poirot set the tisane cup down with precise care and arranged the saucer symmetrically. His small hands moved with familiar order. The fire crackled softly, wood smoke drifting upward. Outside, the distant sounds of London faded into night. The apartment felt warm and secure, a private retreat after the public theatre of crime. The psychology of the human heart remains Poirot's greatest study. We are all actors upon life's stage, yet the greatest wisdom lies in knowing when to drop the mask and speak without script. In Wilton Crescent, the curtain fell on greed and deception. In your own life, watch for the moments when the performance feels too perfect, when hands stay steady when they should tremble, when eyes remain dry when tears should fall. These are the tells that reveal the truth beneath the costume. Until the next theatre of crime, mes amis, Poirot watches always.